Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Beautiful morning in the Ozarks. It'll be another pretty warm, windy day, so we will see if I get busy with any kind of grass fires, forest fires. In the western part of my state, we got a notification yesterday that they activated a regional-wide mutual aid network for the fires because they're having some pretty serious wildfires out in western Missouri. So you don't hear that often in this state. So that just gives you an idea of how dry it is. So for you folks out there in the dry areas, just be careful. It doesn't take much to get things started when it's getting this dry. So I've been talking to you quite a bit here lately about all things kind of coming together, right? It's like that picture is finally starting to come into view. You know, you can finally start to see at least portions of what's going on. You get an idea. And a big part of that is an upcoming election that I think most of you would all agree is not going to be a smooth ride. I was talking to an older gentleman that lives nearby yesterday or the day before, I don't remember. I think it was yesterday. And we were talking about that, and he said, I think it's going to be chaotic either way, regardless of who wins or how it plays out. He says, I can't imagine things just being smooth and not eventually, you know, become violent. And remember, folks, I see this because for whatever reason, it's like the more modern we get or whatever, the more we forget. I think it has to do with social media. I think it's because we are inundated at such a higher amount than humans ever have been before of just news, current event type stuff. Way more. Like the average person in a day probably takes in as much news and current event information as someone, you know, 100 years ago would do over an entire year. So I think we're just inundated with it. Our brains just can't remember stuff as well as they used to. But anyways, don't forget what happened during 2020, Summer of Love. That wasn't technically directly related to the election, but we all know and knew that it was because of an election. And while we haven't seen that level of protest, violence type stuff leading up to this one, I think it's pretty safe to say that there's a strong possibility that kind of reaction could happen afterwards. The people that are trying to pull the strings and the puppet masters of all of this, they want America to be ripped apart. They want a civil war type of violence. They want things to be chaotic because it fits their plan, and it makes people more dependent upon the puppet masters, you know. And looking at all of the chaos that's happened already, seeing chaos and violence on American streets, I think it's extremely likely. And that should be something that you're preparing for. You know, it's going to be different everywhere. Just like back during the BLM stuff, you know, there were areas like, you know, where I live, it was just as normal as can be, other than knowing about what was going on in other cities. Nothing was different here. But obviously in some areas it was very different. So you need to be thinking about, okay, do I live in an area that has, you know, that would be more likely to see that kind of stuff? Then you need to really step it up and prepare. For those of you that don't live in those areas, it doesn't mean you don't need to prepare. It's just a different way. You know, there may not be violence in the streets where you live, but there could be disruptions in supply chains. There could be attacks on grid facilities that could affect you. There's a lot of stuff like that. Government could, you know, enact martial law and emergency orders and things like that would affect you. And that's part of our preparedness. When I talk to you over the last few weeks about getting ready for what's coming, that's part of it. You know, that's part of what we're possibly going to see. I'm not going to say likely yet, but I think it's a strong possibility. And we have to kind of wake up to that. The far left, they want violence. They want it to be chaotic. You know, if you look at the language that they've talked about, you know, how Trump and MAGA and the far-right conservatives are dangerous, they're a threat to democracy. Well, now they're saying, you know, it's Hitler, all this kind of stuff. That is just, you know, kind of fulminating that anger and that, you know, ability to go out and do violent acts. So you and I can't stop it, right? What do we do? Well, we get ready. We realize that these things could happen. You know, if you live in an urban or suburban area, if you're not gonna leave, then you better be ready to lock yourselves down. I would suggest, if you haven't already done so, have the ability to board up your windows. Go out and buy plywood or OSB. Doesn't have to be anything fancy or expensive. Bring it home and pre-cut it so that it fits over the doors. Have the screw holes drilled out and everything ready to make it faster. Have each board marked and which window it goes over, and stick them in your garage. That way it's fast, it's easy. You just have a plan for, you know, have enough water in your home, enough food in your home, how to heat your home. If you have to kind of lock yourself down, you know, by the time the election arrives in a couple of weeks, it may be pretty cold for some of you. These are things that may seem small, but they're vitally important. Because if you find yourself in a region, in an area that's fallen apart in that way, you're going to want to have a plan and look at what went on during the BLM riots as just kind of a baseline. Because if violence does start to happen on American streets, I think it'll be worse than 2020. So, anyways, I thought I would bring that up and as a reminder, because I mean, none of us have forgotten what happened in 2020 with the BLM riots, but I think we forget to think about it. Does that make sense? And reminding you folks of how it went, how bad it was. And I truly think that the emotional reaction to whatever's going to happen during this election would probably be a greater emotion than what happened during 2020, regardless of whether Donald Trump or Kamala takes office. I think the emotions are even higher. There's desperation on both sides. That this is it. This is the final election that will determine, you know, for all of eternity, that, you know, we either, you know, stay as a free country or not, or we either move forward as this progressive, you know, left or not. You know, I think both sides see this election as that final one. It will determine forever our future. I'm not saying that that's necessarily true. I'm just saying that I think that's what a lot of people are in their heads thinking. And so regardless of who wins, or if they even determine a winner, I think it could get a lot of emotions going. So yeah, I think we could see some craziness. All right, folks, get your houses in order. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.